Okay, second part of my very early notes on part 1 of Being and Time. Page 68 of the MacQuarrie and Robinson translation. The sign is its possibility, and it has this possibility in the sense of mindness. The sign can, in its very being, choose itself and win itself. The sign can also lose itself and never win itself, or only seem to. Only insofar as it can be something authentic, something of its own, can it have lost itself and not yet won itself. Inauthenticity and authenticity are yoked to mindness. Yoked is definitely a word that I put in there. That's just an obvious sort of reiteration of what was just stated in that passage. Next page. In determining itself as an entity, possibility, which it is itself, in its being, it understands. I feel like that sentence is wholly incomplete. Dasein understands that it is possibility. What Dasein is possibility, and Dasein understands this. Its very being. In Dasein's very being, which is sort of recursive, like saying, just like the example Heidegger gives us, it's sort of like saying biological life or something like that, biological life. I don't remember the exact example. The sign should be uncovered in its undifferentiated character. The undifferentiated character of the sign's everydayness is not nothing, but a positive phenomenal characteristic. Everyday undifferentiatedness is equivalent to averageness, which is just some terminology I think Heidegger renders equivalent to itself, or renders states to be equivalent in that part of page 69. Page 70, Existentialia. The signs characters of being are sharply distinguished from categories. Characteristics of being for entities whose character is not that of the sign. Existentialia, so I believe are the characters of being of Dasein, whereas categories are the characteristics of being for entities not Dasein. Again, just more terminology. A lot of this is just terminology. Or at least those are the notes that I took, because hammer in these definitions and then much of the rest of the text should flow more easily, but I have some observations about reading cognition with Heidegger, but we shouldn't mention anything cognitive, perhaps, when it comes to Heidegger. On page 73, the person exists only in the performance of intentional acts, and is therefore not an object. Acts are not psychical. Objectification of acts taking them as physical is tantamount to depersonalization. I'm sorry, taking them as okay, I have to restate that. Acts are not physical. Acts are not psychical. Objectification of acts, taking them as psychical, is tantamount to depersonalization. Psychical being has nothing to do with personal being. This is important. This is a very important notion, I believe, about acts. But it's also sort of paradoxical here too. If the person exists only in the performance of intentional acts, and is thus not an object, so I think he's trying to say that acts are higher than psychicality, language-based thoughts, and other thought and speech-based phenomena. The person exists only in the performance of intentional acts. So the person is really an actor. And this is where the essence, or this is where his being lies. It appears that it may be that what Heidegger is saying is being but he's talking about psychical being and not having to do with personal being, which is fine, but he's not saying that psychical being is less existent than personal being, unless he is, because I can see there's that's why Being in Time is the first section is almost 200 pages for division part 1, because I believe he discussed the matter much more thoroughly than this. But I see two possibilities: that psychical being is ontic in a sense, so that psychicality, thoughts and language and ideas are ontic and thus not ontological, not. I want to talk about a strength in being, but I know that that's not the point here. It's not about how ontology is stronger in its being than ontics or ontical being. It's just not the sign. And he doesn't, as far as my notes go, I'd have to go back to the text, but I do not believe he talks about the sign. I don't know if the sign is psychical, and if the sign has thoughts. I think the sign does. But these are separate from acts and intentional acts. Here, another point, performance of intentional acts is a personal phenomenon, a personal event, and So intention, we would have to include in the sign has intention. But are intentions not psychical? Do not intentions have psychical aspects or components? More reading to do. Anyways, page 75. The being of life, not a mere object present at hand, nor Dasein. Dasein does not equal life plus something else. That note was about a note that Heidegger was making with regard to I don't know. I don't want to judge Heidegger's commentary on life here. There was a decent section of text regarding life and being, and I was having true thoughts about it. I felt like I was having insight spurred by Heidegger's text regarding life, and that I knew what was happening, but I don't know from this note exactly what the point I was trying to make is. Page 76. Everydayness is a mode of Dasein's being. Primitive Dasein has an everydayness of its own. I didn't know what Heidegger was talking about when he brought up this primitive Dasein. I did not know what he meant, because I do believe that Dasein has everydayness and primitive Dasein has everydayness. And Heidegger does clearly state that primitive Dasein has an everydayness of its own, in contrast to uncluttered Dasein or unqualified Dasein or undifferentiated Dasein. Okay. The next part of this the next section of this part, being in the world in general as the basic state of Dasein. Page 78. Dasein exists inauthentically. Dasein exists in authenticity. Inauthenticity, or is modally undifferentiated. I brought this up before. So Dasein is either existing in authenticity, inauthenticity, or modal undifferentiation. So those are modes. Authenticity is mode, inauthenticity is a mode for Dasein's existence. Page 82. Whenever Dasein is, it is as a fact, and the factuality of such a fact is what we shall call Dasein's facticity. I like how Dasein is a fact, and the factuality of such a fact is what we shall call Dasein's facticity. So I guess even in inauthenticity, Dasein is inauthentically as a fact. I don't know if the sort of tag or the category of the mode of inauthenticity is attached to the facticity, but I would think it would have to be, otherwise it wouldn't be a fact. But this is all in the so-called etheric record or whatever. I mean, we don't have, unless we have watchers or observers, then perhaps they know, and they're Heidegger illuminated. I don't know. Anyways, page 83. Dasein's facticity is, it exists, such that its being in the world has always dispersed itself into definite ways of being in, having to do with something, producing something, attending to something, and looking after it, making use of something, giving something up, undertaking, accomplishing, evincing, interrogating, considering, discussing, determining, all ways of being in that have concern. Leaving undone, neglecting, renouncing, taking a rest, these are deficient modes in which the possible ways of concern are kept to a bare minimum. That's a useful section of text. Okay, page 84. Dasein, when understood ontologically, is care. Tribulation, melancholy, the cares of life, and their opposites, gaiety and freedom from care, are ontically only possible because Dasein is care. I have not analyzed that notion, that fragment there. It could be exploded upon, though, I'm sure. And it seems like a rich idea. I haven't done so, though, at all. This is what I mean. I start getting, there's something about Heidegger's text. I will read, but then I will be working, suddenly my mind will start working on an idea that he's forwarded, but I will try to keep reading. So I miss a lot because I'm still working on this other idea. It's pretty interesting. This just the cognitive psychology of reading. Yeah, reading Heidegger, which could be its own branch of the cognitive psychology of reading. Anyways, what is the environment in biology? This is a good question. Or this is a fun point that Heidegger brought up regarding the disregard or the inadequacy of biologists' definition of what the environment is in biological science. Having some exposure to biology, I don't know if, I think he brought it up and I took his word for it. I feel like there is some reasonably, obviously there's the definition of what the environment is, or what that idea of what the environment in a biological experiment is composed of, or what goes along with that notion of the environment, is more than adequate in biological sciences, but biology is huge. I don't know. So anyways, I'll go on. This is a short note. Page 85. Knowing the world, or rather addressing oneself to the world and discussing it, thus functions as a primary mode of being in the world, though being in the world does not as such get conceived. Well, I haven't taken anything more. I do want to talk for a brief moment after this. Thank you.